I spent, I don't know, 25 years learning how to use spray paint. All of that time trying to learn spray paint, trying to get it to do the thing I wanted it to do, only to realise that it really isn't the medium that I should be using. I had to steer the artwork in a different direction. My body just decided that it was not going to be exposed to spray paint anymore. It just, loads of health problems, hospitalisation and all that kind of stuff. So all of the early paintings, the intention was to make it very clean, very clinical, and to stop it looking like it was made with spray paint. And now I'm just forcing myself to go through a process of using a brush, accepting of whatever the brush stroke does, and there's nuances in that, and there's the risk of it going wrong, there's jeopardy in the brush strokes, and the old me would have really struggled with that, the need to have very clean lines and very solid colours, and I am choosing to throw that away. I'm not turning my back on all my old work, I'm very proud of it, but the direction that I've chosen to work in, I feel like it has more longevity, I feel like it is a better way of me being able to represent the meanings behind the paintings. So, you know, things have to develop, they have to mature, and I'd like to think that they have.
Welcome to Woodbury House. My name is Sulley. I'm the founder, and I'm joined today by Gary Stranger. We have a pending show coming up in August, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the title, we're going to talk about the narrative. But before we do, I'd like the audience to get to know you as a human being, as well as an important artist from the world of graffiti and street art. So anyway, Gary, welcome to Woodbury House, and thank you for this conversation.
Thank you, nice to be here.
I know you started your journey in roughly the mid-90s. You became an artist and you got involved with what we deem as urban art, graffiti, street art. What was your kind of calling? Why did you get involved with graffiti in the 90s?
I think that's a good question. If I can try to remember as far back as the mid-90s, I mean, it was graffiti for graffiti's sake. You know, I had no aspirations to be an artist at that stage. It was entirely about painting graffiti. I lived in Brighton and it was everywhere. And at the time, kind of mid to late 90s, Brighton had a very rich graffiti scene, and there was lots of people would pass through, so there was a transient population, and it was a destination city for graffiti writers, and so it was a great place to live for that reason. So seeing it everywhere kind of just, you know, your exposure to it encourages you to want to, well, encouraged me to want to do it. But, you know, angry young man, teenager, you know, angry at the world, you go out and write on things, and that was how I started. It's kind of morphed over the years as I've got older into something a little bit more refined, I would hope. But graffiti was where it started for me.
What moment did you decide, when you was on the streets as a graffiti writer per se, did you want to turn it more into a business and down the gallery setting?
I think it was when I realised that the graffiti that I was painting had a broader appeal than just with other graffiti writers. Like, a lot of the stuff you see on the street is designed or is created and written for other writers, other graffiti writers. I always chose to make stuff that was kind of legible, right? Or it used like fonts and scripts and things like that that allowed the general public to be able to read what I was doing and engage with it. I really enjoyed the fact that Joe Public could read what I was doing, and often I'd be painting in the street and be getting feedback from the sort of people who you would just not expect to be interested in what I was doing. You know, it wasn't other writers that liked what I was doing, it was like mums or, you know, old people, like whatever, it was just regular people. And it started the process of me thinking, you know, maybe there is a broader interest than just the graffiti scene. I think everybody who is making art or graffiti, whatever, painting publicly, like, they are looking for feedback. You know, like, you can't pretend that you are not looking for some sort of response from it. For some people, they're happy with a negative response. Like, I wanted what I did to be liked. I was definitely steered by the fact that there was a sort of broader public interest in what I was doing, or at least people could understand it. Like, for the most part, people, the general public, just don't understand graffiti. Can't read it, resent the fact that it's there. I'm generalising for effect, right? But mostly I think people's attitude to graffiti is it's kind of a nuisance. Yeah. Every now and then there's a thing that people can read and they're like, okay, at least I get that. So I think feeding back off of a public response really was the thing that began to steer it away from a traditional kind of graffiti aesthetic.
Yeah, I mean, even in my own experience, right, I'm 39 years of age, so I'm not the oldest or youngest person on the face of the planet, but I've got enough years in me where when I was younger at school, my mum and dad probably used to kind of look at public art, street art or graffiti as vandalism and didn't really understand it and probably spoke down upon it. But since I've been a part of this world for almost 11 years now, and they've come to a lot of shows and stuff, even their perception has completely changed. And I think even widely speaking, the public, they a lot more now, they probably understand it more than ever. Don't get me wrong, there's probably parts of the country and parts of the population that still don't understand it and they've got a very dim view. But I do feel like the public, certainly in places like Brighton, parts of London, and certain parts of the country, people are now celebrating street artists and street art a lot more as a way of expressing themselves, but also brightening up a certain area. Would you agree with some of that?
I agree with all of that. I think there are still a lot of people who are just never going to get on board with it because, you know, they don't understand the difference between graffiti that is vandalism and painted illegally and a commissioned piece of street art. You know, like it broadly just kind of looks the same in some cases. You know, you aren't going to please all the people all the time, right? So out of the thousands of people that are choosing to paint on the street, you know, there'll be a handful of artists that are doing something that is genuinely interesting or genuinely engaging to the public, that doesn't look like regular graffiti. So when something has a value, a price attached to it, you know, it always helps to sweeten the deal for people, right? Because, you know, everyone is unhappy about their house being written on until they find out it's a Banksy. So like, money helps, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It certainly does. It changes the perception about things.
It does change the perception, yeah.
So your style then, if I were to look at a Gary Stranger work, maybe a mural or a piece on the streets, to something now that I've personally seen, and I've placed these works now with good collectors, what would be the distinct difference in style and feel?
So look, I spent, I don't know, 25 years learning how to use spray paint, right? So crucially, all of those early pieces would have been done in spray paint. It kind of looked like graffiti or, you know, straight letters or whatever. All of that time trying to learn spray paint, trying to get it to do the thing I wanted it to do, only to realise that it really isn't the medium that I should be using. You know, like it's terrible for your health and all that kind of stuff. I had to steer the artwork in a different direction. My body just decided that it was not going to be exposed to spray paint anymore. It's loads of health problems, hospitalisation and all that kind of stuff. And the aesthetic had to change because of that. There are echoes. You know, I'd like to think if you lined the work up that you would be able to see a lineage, but there had to be a distinct aesthetic change. And so now I use a brush, I use acrylic paints mostly, and all of the early graffiti I painted, the intention was to make it very clean, you know, as clean as possible. Spray paint's a very messy medium, and anyone who's had a go with it can understand that it's a difficult thing to master. So all of the early paintings, the intention was to make it very clean, very clinical, and to stop it looking like it was made with spray paint. And now I'm just forcing myself to go through a process of using a brush, accepting of whatever the brush stroke does. And there's nuances in that, and there's the risk of it going wrong, there's jeopardy in the brush strokes. And the old me would have really struggled with that, the need to have very clean lines and very solid colours. And I am choosing to throw that away. So I'm, you know, not turning my back on all my old work. I'm very proud of it. But the direction that I've chosen to work in, I feel like it has more longevity. I feel like it is a better way of me being able to represent the meanings behind the paintings. And you know what? The first things I painted, it was graffiti. It just said my name. You can't just do that and expect a career, right? You can't just write your own name over and over and over again and expect the world to like it. So, you know, things have to develop, they have to mature, and I'd like to think that they have.
When you render your artwork on canvas, paper, whatever medium you choose, what I've read about you online and what a lot of people who've got an opinion about your work is you're very precise and you've got a very steady hand, which in itself is a very hard thing to master, and it's a great skill to have. How did you get so precise? How did you kind of learn that skill and develop that unique technique?
I think this is the training that the graffiti days gave me, like, you know, trying to conquer that medium of spray paint and forcing it to do the thing that it doesn't want to do. And it's practice, right? It's muscle memory. You know, if you do anything for long enough, you become competent at it, at least. It is muscle memory, it's practice. There's a little bit of breath control and, patience.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things at play, and they don't always work. Just because the painting is there made public, it doesn't mean that it was right first time. There's a lot of false starts.
Yeah. Just giving a bit of exposure to some of the works that I personally love, adore, and also place with collectors. So you've got things like faith, grit, gift, value, false idols. But I think the number one for me has been status.
Okay.
For some reason, when I read that word and look at that artwork, it makes me feel really, really good for some reason. So going over all of these sayings, all these words, why are these words chosen for your artworks?
The words are the culmination of like a thought process for me. So every painting I make is me committing a word or a phrase or a sentiment to canvas in order to kind of exorcise it from me, right? So you could take any one of those paintings on face value and, it is a painting about status, or it is a painting about faith, or, literal faith, religious faith. It isn't necessarily that at all. It is almost always quite a private, quite a deep conversation with myself about a topic, and that is the result of it. It's a process of almost therapy for me. So the paintings are the combination of a process of sitting with a thought or a feeling or an emotion or a topic, processing that feeling, and then committing it to canvas as a way of kind of exorcising it and getting it out of my system. So talking therapy would be another way of doing it, but this is a process that I've found that works for me. So a painting like False Idols, it is a comment about not giving airtime to the people who are asking for it. It is about tuning out the people who are telling you that their opinion matters, focusing on yourself. I look for quiet. There's another painting that says that, right? The objective is to drown out the background noise, and there's so much noise. I spend a lot of my time looking for peace and quiet and the absence of noise. We are just bombarded nowadays with people telling you that we should be listening to them. Politicians, fucking celebrities, like whatever. Don't give attention to those that are asking for it. And this is advice I'm giving to myself. I'm not out there preaching. These paintings are very personal.
Yeah.
And often the meaning behind a painting is probably too personal for me to be able to speak about, right? But the idea is that everybody is able to engage with them at a level that they choose. It's multi-layered, right? And if it wasn't complex, then it wouldn't be interesting.
Yeah. How do you choose the colour? Because the colour, in my opinion, can change almost the meaning of that word based upon the colour tone that you deploy on that canvas. That
can be true. The colour very rarely comments on the word, actually. No, there's almost no relation, actually. In a few occasions that's the case, and I think I've probably articulated that to you guys when I've delivered work to you before, that the choice of colour is specific to that word for a very particular reason. By and large, it's black and white, my work, literally, and that's because it's lettering, right? And text is black and white. So it isn't just about making something that's pretty, because they aren't always. It is about committing the word to a canvas, but in a way that has rules and maths, and the lettering is deliberately a certain way. The manipulation of the text is deliberate, certainly, but the colour is not necessarily relevant. It's definitely about the committing of that word, and if it doesn't work in black and white, then it doesn't work at all. Is kind of how I feel about them. I agree that some of them, the colour adds another element of interest. It's not always pertinent to the word itself, right?
Yeah. There's two works that I really, really like. They're fairly similar when you look at them, but they're actually two different words completely. Grit and gift. That kind of cream off-white background with that kind of red, slightly orange word really works, in my opinion. When you've kind of invented those two things together, was that intentional or was that by chance?
The objective with those works, all of the work in this show certainly, is that I'm using a dry brush and I'm building layers with the dry brush, and the intention is to create depth and also to create some translucency with the words, right, with the letters. And so it happens that red and that kind of calico coloured canvas, you get the perception of translucency very it's very satisfying to look at. So I agree, I think there are some colour combinations that work better than others. The red and the calico is particularly good for it, I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if someone's coming across you as a person for the first time, you as an artist for the first time, and your work for the very, very first time, calligraphy, abstracts, typography, graffiti, how would you describe what you do?
It's none of those, unfortunately. Okay. It would be very nice for me to be able to have a word that did summarise it, and I just don't. I've spent a lot of time trying to think about how to describe it, and it's kind of all of that and none of it. Typographic arrangements, it's basically how I would, if I had to boil it down to sort of one title. It is sort of, the intention is like visually pleasing typographic arrangements. It wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for other artists from the fine art world, like Lee Yu Fan, the Korean artist, similar sort of thing, like these kind of translucent brushstrokes, very measured, very controlled. So it's got a bit of that. It's got a bit of kind of Brazilian street. It's got a bit of all sorts of stuff in it, but I'd like to think that it's maybe none of it as well. So. Okay.
You as an artist were a part of a crew called MSK, which was born and sort of started in LA, and now it's a global movement, and they're known for their skill, they're known for their energy, and they're known for having some real big superstars a part of that organisation. If people do not know what MSK is or are, would you be able to give us a small insight to who they are and how you got involved with them?
I mean, clearly it's an absolute honour to ever have been considered viable for that crew. It's a collective of graffiti writers and artists from America, but kind of concentrated in California. And it's kind of basically just like, in my opinion, I'm clearly unbiased, but it's kind of the best of American graffiti. And there was a period of time in the early 2000s when I was traveling a lot and met a lot of the guys from that, stayed in touch, and it became a friendship. I was invited to join, 2009, 2010, that kind of time. And just like a total accolade, basically. You couldn't kind of ask to be involved with a more prestigious group of artists, really. It's about as good as it gets.
Looking at your social media following, specifically on Instagram, I think out of all the artists that we've got on our books, you've actually probably got the largest following. Would you say being a part of that crew, and obviously being highly skilled and very good at what you do, did it help with the social media following?
Of course, yeah, of course. I mean, MSK is like the American powerhouse of graffiti scene, and with my inclusion in that crew, there was just naturally a bit more attention on me. So I think perhaps some of that following is as a result of that.
Yeah.
Social media is dying, kind of, feels like. So, where there might have been a gain back in the 2010, 2012, that kind of period, it's just as a platform, it's dying, it feels like. But look, there still seems to be some people who care about what I'm doing, and that's nice.
Over the years, has there been certain murals and certain projects that you've done publicly that you've looked back on and you go, wow, I achieved that?
There's a handful of larger murals that I've done that that I'm still proud of. Mural painting is hard, like big walls. They're physically very challenging, and I think it's quite hard to produce artwork that can live in a public place like that and stand the test of time. It's very difficult to gauge how to get a public mural right. But yeah, there's a number of walls that I've done that I'm still really proud of. One in particular that I'm painted in Rotterdam. It was a housing estate which is being used to house asylum seekers. And there was a bit of money available to try and find a way of allowing people to feel welcomed there. So there was me and an artist friend of mine, Pref, who painted these walls. The piece said home. And it was about trying to allow people to feel as though this might be their new home. But look, aesthetically, I liked the work. It's still there. I still get sent photographs of it, and this is, it could be 10 years now that it's been living there. So yeah, it feels nice that there's something that I'm still proud of that's still kind of performing for me out there. That's nice.
As an artist then, you've gone on this big journey starting from the streets, and clearly ideas, style has been refined and evolved and changed over time. Coming to the end result, you make a piece, let's say value or status or turn on any of these wonderful artworks that you produce. Ideally, where do you like them to end up? Is it in collections? Is it up on the wall somewhere? Is it in a hotel or an institute? Where would you like it to go?
Any of those places. It would probably be disappointing to hear that they'd been wrapped up and put into storage somewhere, right? But so be it if that's the case. My ideal is that someone engages with the work for the right reasons, and they choose to own it, and it's on display where they live or where they work, and they get the benefit of it on a daily basis. By the time I've made it, I'm kind of done with it. Like not in that it's dead to me, but the process of making the painting is about the process, and so I often forget what I've made, and I'll see a picture of something, or somebody will tag me in a picture online, or look through old photographs. I'm like, I don't remember having made these things, because the intention behind the painting is to get whatever that thing is out of me. And so once it's done, I tend not to want to revisit that. I'd like them to be enjoyed by people rather than put away.
Yeah, I think if people can enjoy, they resonate with the work. It's a good talking point at their office or at their home when they've got their friends over or business affiliates. It's a good thing to do. But also, if people are parking their money into these art assets and they feel over time it's going to protect their money and maybe make some money, it's a win-win for everybody involved, right? Including the artist.
I think so.
So, forward thinking then, August, we're going to be launching Your Good Self here at the gallery. Really excited by it, because you're officially going to be the first artist we've signed from the UK. Okay. Bearing in mind, this year we're going to be 11 years old as a brand. And the funny thing about us is we've only ever worked with international pioneers or street artists. So to have somebody from our own country is a really, really exciting thing for us.
Oh, I'm flattered. Thank you.
So the show is going to be titled Self-Help.
Correct.
We launch in the first week of August, and I'm very, very excited to have the VIP night, have all the collectors here, have the press, PR, etc. It's going to be a really, really good thing. What could collectors expect from this show, Gary?
Oof. Apart from a glass of champagne, there'll be a collection of work. It's all very personal work, very poignant to me. The show is titled Self-Help for a reason, right? And it is about allowing artwork to be the vehicle for self-improvement. And so the paintings here, in one way or another, reflect topics that I've had to invest some time in to better myself on, things that have steered my life over the last few years, for better or for worse. So it is a sort of slightly refined dip into my mind, for better or for worse. But that's the intention, is that it's a process of self-improvement, making art for me.
And I think you've touched on this previously in this conversation and when we've been speaking, but art is interpretation, right? Is subjective. One person may see a piece. I know there's a piece going into that show called Fight. I mentioned to you that my choice of sport is boxing, and I've always enjoyed boxing and watching boxing. So clearly, when I see the word fight, that has one meaning to me. But a collector could walk through the door today, see this amazing canvas that says fight in blue, and have a completely different take on it. Do you think that's important for collectors to have different interpretations?
Absolutely, because you can take it literally, and it is, if you choose to engage with it on that level, it is about a fight. But I don't mean physically. It's not about what you were used to as a boxer. It's about the personal fight. The need to continue. If you don't have any fight in you, then you're done, right? So it is about personal motivation rather than, it's by no means condoning physical violence, right? It's not that literal.
I feel, because of your status, how long you've been in the industry for, your skill, etc. There's probably quite a lot of galleries that like to work with you. Why choose to work with us, Woodbury House?
You're good people. The gallery world is, it's not all sweetness and light. It's a murky business. And my experience of working with Woodbury has been nothing but positive. It's refreshing to have a gallery that is hungry, that's motivated, that is actively trying to market work, trying to engage with buyers, explaining the work properly for me. I've had galleries that have done all those things, but being able to do it in a package, the location's incredible. Yeah, listen, I'd relish the opportunity to show work in Mayfair, so here we are.
Yeah, thank you, Gary, and it's reciprocated.
Great.
Very much so. So beyond this show then, your goals, aspirations, and where you feel you would like to be over the next few years. I mean, a lot of artists or a lot of galleries talk about institutional support or collaborations with museums. Is that kind of on your radar? Are you thinking about that?
I mean, I think it would be quite conceited of me to assume that that's even possible, right? Like I say, the process for making the paintings is one painting at a time, one topic at a time. And I don't know, like as soon as you start to look too far into the future, you run the risk of losing the focus as to why you're making the work in the first place, right? So listen, whatever happens, happens, and I'm going to continue making work. Where it ends up is anyone's guess. But listen, I mean, I'd be a liar if I said I wasn't excited at the idea of them being in a institution one day or a museum. That would be fantastic, but that is not my objective.
Yeah, fair enough. We spoke before we started about, the artist has almost got sort of two roles. You've got the creating of the art, making the art, coming at the idea, the narrative, and different concepts, which must be quite tough at times. It can't always be, you come up with an idea and it's easy to deploy. So you've got that one side, but then you have to wear another hat, which is kind of the business side of it. And do you find that an easy role to do, or do you find it a little bit difficult to have two hats on sometimes?
Well, naturally, it's very difficult, but I'd argue you have to have more than two. You have to be sort of a photographer. You've got to be competent with Photoshop. You've got to be legally trained. You have to be able to understand the contracts. You have to know about social media, and it isn't just as easy as I make the work and you guys sell it. I mean, actually, the benefit of working with somebody like Woodbury is with an organisation like you is that it is as close to that relationship as you can get. In effect, I make the work and you display it and hopefully sell it and place it. But outside of a relationship with a gallery as an artist, yeah, you're having to be a multi-skilled individual and at the same time retain creative control and do it for pure reasons. And I really naively assumed that being a career as an artist would be a walk in the park. It would be like a kind of not an easy ride, but it's hard. Like I'm not expecting anyone to feel sorry for me, but like it's way difficult.
Yeah. And as an artist, how do you come up with your concepts? How do you inspire ideas? And do you look at other artists as well? And obviously you're never going to mimic or copy what they do, but do you draw a bit of inspiration to somebody else and go, wow, what they've done there is really, really cool. I can spin that into my own kind of concept.
So often you see another artist's work and you take it on face value, and it's only when you meet them or you see an interview with them and you understand that their motivation for whatever it was they were doing was completely different, and it allows you a whole new perspective on their work. So I am motivated and inspired by understanding other artists' motivation for what they do, rather than I like how it looks and looking to try to replicate. That's not cool at all. But being excited by other artists' motivation and understanding why they have their practice, that's fun.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation, Gary. Very much looking forward to the launch of Self-Help in August. The show's going to run for a number of weeks. We're going to have a lot of work in here. All are going to be very kind of iconic to your style and very fit into this kind of narrative and this title. And you're going to be here for the opening launch, opening night, yeah?
Yeah, I will be here, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
Drinking water, yeah.
Okay. Well, look, thank you for your time today, and onwards and upwards with the show.
Correct. Thank you.
All right?
Cheers,
Thank
Stephen.
you. Cheers.